What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are talking all about motivation because I have talked with hundreds, scratch that, probably thousands of Christian men in my Instagram DMs and what holds them back from reaching their weight loss goals. When I ask them that type of question, one of the common themes is motivation. So we're going to go through everything you need to know about motivation and why that's actually not what you need in order to be successful on this journey. So without further ado, let's dive into it. As you can see, I have a Notion doc here, which by the way, it will be linked down in the video description below if you want to access this yourself. But in this presentation, we're going to go over why relying on motivation is not your winning strategy, and instead how you need to develop discipline and consistency over the long term. And ultimately, that is what's going to lead to your success. So inside of this, we're going to cover some practical tips, how to actually create these habits in the first place, how to stay on track with some of these habits, and then we're also going to talk about some biblical perspectives and just incorporating this into a faith-driven approach as well. So let's get into it. So we are going to start with this. Here is the problem with chasing motivation. Motivation is temporary. It is a feeling that comes and goes. It's not going to be there every single day. There's a lot of men that struggle because they are waiting for that motivation to kick in. But again, since it's a feeling, it's going to be unreliable and it's also going to be fleeting. There might be some days where you feel super motivated and you're like, yes, I'm ready to go to the gym. I'm ready to eat healthy and track my nutrition. But there's also going to be days that you don't have that motivation. And when that happens, then what? Do you just stop doing all of those habits, disciplines, and routines? If you do, that's what's holding you back from actually reaching your weight loss goals. So as I've already said in this video, what you really want is going to be discipline, because discipline is taking action regardless of feelings. And why should you care about breaking free from this mentality? Well, if you do that, that's going to allow you to achieve results just like these. So let's take Brandon for an example, who lost 50 pounds inside of our program and he achieved his dream goal of enlisting in the Air Force. Or you can take Saul, who is down 39 pounds and he reversed his pre-diabetes. Or any of the other guys that have come through our program. Tyler down 29 pounds, Aaron down 27 pounds, Scott down 27 pounds and built some beach-ready abs after being in a yo-yo dieting cycle for nearly a decade. Brandon is down 30 pounds as well. So I'm telling you, if you can break out of this thought process of believing that what you need is motivation, and instead you can rely on discipline and consistency, that is going to be your key to success when it comes to achieving your weight loss goal. And before we get into the how-to of overcoming this mentality, I first want to start by looking at this from a biblical point of view. So what does the Bible have to say about the importance of daily discipline? Well, I want to share 6 verses with you guys. I'm sure there are more in the Bible, but these were just the ones on my heart. But overall, we can see that Scripture teaches us the value of daily discipline and perseverance. It's all about showing up consistently regardless of our feelings, which is a key theme in this video. If we start with 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 27, we can go ahead and read that. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. So when Paul was writing this to the Corinthians, you can see that he was underscoring the importance of having these disciplines, not just when it comes to your spiritual health, but also when it comes to your physical lives as well. Or we can take a look at Proverbs 12:1, which says, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is stupid. So what's the takeaway from this verse? Well, discipline, it's not just necessary, but it's something that we truly need to embrace in order to grow and succeed in all areas of our life. Or how about Hebrews 12:11 that says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. I love this one because the Bible is straight up telling us that discipline is going to suck. It's going to be painful. It's not going to be fun to discipline your flesh and make yourself do the things that you don't want to do. However, it's going to lead to that harvest in the future and you reaching your goals, and ultimately it's going to be worth it. We can also look at Galatians chapter 6, verse verse 9, which has a similar message to Hebrews 12:11. It says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So in other words, if we stay disciplined, if we stay consistent, if we persevere, the results will come in due time. Or how about 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7 that says, "For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid," or in other versions it says fearful, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. So this is the ultimate reminder that that discipline is going to come from God in the first place. And then beyond that, what you're going to need is some extra accountability in order to build that discipline. Because if we're being honest, if you could have done it already on your own, you would have. And then the last one is going to be Luke 16:10 that says, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much." Now, I know what you're thinking, Tyler, this verse is about honesty. Yes, but it applies to discipline as well, because what this is saying is that if you can keep those small promises to yourself, you will be able to keep the big promises to yourself. So if your goal is to lose 50 pounds and you want to keep that promise to yourself, what you need to do is keep the small promises to yourself along the way, so that way those small steps lead to that big result. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and transition into how to actually overcome this mentality. And the key here is going to be creating sustainable habits, because that's all about building routines and systems that are easy to maintain over the long term, even when motivation is low or you don't feel like doing it. Remember, we don't want to rely on feelings because those are fleeting. So let's start with how to create sustainable habits in the first place. I put 4 tips for you here. Start small. So my suggestion is to make small and manageable changes, because if you do this, you're going to prevent yourself from feeling overwhelmed, which chances are you've probably done that in some sort of diet in the past, where you make all these drastic changes, your life totally 180s, and then what happens? After a couple weeks, you burn out, those habits don't stick, and then you're back to square one, and we don't want that. The next tip that I have for you is related to that as well, because what I want you to do is focus on one habit at a time. Trying to change way too much all at once is going to lead to that same feeling of overwhelm that I described. So instead, what I want you to do is focus on mastering one habit. Once you can do that, then add in a second. Once you can do both of those things consistently, then add in a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. And if you can do that day after day after day and week over week, once a year rolls by, you are going to be a totally different person. The next one is going to be using triggers or cues. So what I want you to do is link this new habit to an existing habit or an existing routine. So that way you have a specific trigger that's going to remind yourself to actually perform that habit in the first place. And the last one is going to be set specific and realistic goals, because vague goals are really hard to follow through on. Here's an example of what I mean by that. Oftentimes, guys will tell me things like, "Ty, I just want to feel better. I want to be healthier." Those are great things, but how do you measure progress for that? How do you take action on actually feeling better or actually feeling healthier? You need to have specific markers that you can measure along the way. And my analogy for that would be like getting in the car, you're ready to go on a road trip for vacation, but you have no idea where your destination is. How do you know what roads to take, what highways to get on? You don't. So set something specific so that way you can have clear and concrete action steps in order to actually reach that goal. So those are how to actually create the habits. But once you have the habits, here are some practical tips on actually following through with those. The first one is going to be using the 5-minute rule. I'm sure you guys have heard this one before. Oftentimes it's suggested when it comes to things like work or writing, if we all remember those college essay days. But essentially what I want you to do is commit to working on that habit for just 5 minutes, because oftentimes the biggest barrier to doing that habit is just getting started in the first place. And once you get started, you've got the momentum, and chances are you'll probably want to keep going. Next one is going to be avoid all or nothing thinking. I can fall into that trap of perfectionism as well, but if we're being honest, that sabotages your consistency, because you're either on or you're off. You need to remember that doing something is always going to be better than doing nothing. Another great tip is set up a reward system, because giving yourself some small rewards after completing a task or completing a habit and being consistent with it is going to give you a dopamine reward. So you're going to feel better about doing it, but it's also going to give you that extra push that you need in order to actually stay consistent over the long term. A big one is also going to be tracking your progress. How do you know if you're working towards the goal if you're not tracking anything along the way? So I don't know what that will look like for you specifically. You can search habit tracker or habit journal on Google and you can find different printouts, Excel sheets, whatever it might be. But if you can look back at something tangible and see that you're actually making progress towards this accomplishment, that's going to help you stay committed, and it will also help you stay motivated. But again, you need to be careful with that because motivation is just that feeling that comes and goes. So yes, it can help in circumstances like this, but that's not the end all be all. And the last one is going to be have accountability in your life. We saw in the biblical perspective section that yes, that self-discipline ultimately comes from God, but having accountability and someone to check in with you is actually going to increase your commitment to that habit as opposed to just doing it on your own. So at this point, we've gone through how to actually create these habits and then some practical tips for following through on them. But I wanted to give you guys some real life examples. So what I did was I went through 5 different categories. We've got spiritual growth, fitness, nutrition, sleep and recovery, and time management. And I've given you 3 examples that you can go ahead and put into your life right now. So let's start with spiritual growth. The first one is going to be setting up some sort of morning devotional or Bible reading routine. I personally like to read a devotional. I've got this daily strength for men. So I read 1 page out of this. I will look at the Bible app verse of the day and I'll listen to the video devotional. And that's usually like a 2-minute devotional. And then what I'll also do is I will read 1 chapter out of the Bible with the footnotes. I've got an ESV study Bible. And if I'm feeling up to it, I will also read a commentary from BibleReadingPlan.org. Do you have to do every single thing that I do? No, you need to find what works for you and how you best connect with God. Maybe that's doing a longer Bible reading. Maybe it's spending more time in prayer. Maybe it's just doing some time of self-reflection and spending time with God. Just committing those first 10 to 15 minutes of your day in the morning is going to help center you in your faith and your relationship with God before the busyness and the chaos hits. Another great practice would be starting a gratitude and or prayer journal. So just setting time aside daily or weekly to write out things that you're grateful for, things that you're praying for. You can go back and see any of the answered prayers. All of that is going to help you fast track your spiritual growth. It's going to increase those feelings of gratitude, and really it's going to help deepen your relationship with God. Another one that you might consider would be joining a weekly Bible study if you aren't already in one, because this is going to give you that extra accountability that you might be missing right now. Being able to dive into the Word with other believers, share your struggles, spend time praying for each other is not only going to deepen your connection with God, your vertical relationship, but it's going to deepen your horizontal relationships with those people that are a part of your study group. So now we can look at some real life examples for fitness. One of them might be a morning stretch routine. So maybe you start the day with 5 to 10 minutes of stretching to increase flexibility, get the blood flowing, and reduce overall muscle stiffness, and really just take some time to prepare your body for the day that's ahead. Another thing you could do is daily walk breaks. This is personally one of my favorites. I like to go for a 15-minute walk every single day after lunch. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I do this because I post an Instagram story every single day saying to get yo steps and get yo sun in. And then another one would be weekly strength training. So maybe you schedule 2 or 3 sessions per week. You focus on things like compound movements. So you got your squats, deadlift, bench presses, overhead presses, etc. And you can also incorporate some isolation exercises as well. If you want to know all about that, you can go to my page. I've got a 45-minute masterclass on everything you need to know when it comes to strength training. But ultimately, that's going to be a big one that's going to help you in your weight loss journey. Next up is going to be nutrition. So the first one that I have on here is the balanced plate method. And what that is every time you go to eat a lunch or a dinner, you're going to fill half of your plate with veggies, a quarter of lean protein, and a quarter with whole grains. This is a really simple strategy, but it's going to ensure that your nutrition's on point, you're getting all of your fiber and micronutrients, and you can do all of that without calorie counting, which in my opinion, calorie counting is the best way to help you reach your weight loss goals. But something like this balanced plate method is a very simple place to start. Another one is going to be meal prep Sundays. I guess you could technically do it on Saturday too, whatever works for your schedule. But essentially what I would want you to do is set aside an hour or two each weekend to think about things like a grocery grocery list, a meal plan, what you're going to be eating, and then actually go to the grocery store, get those items, and then do whatever prep is necessary. So that way you have food on deck for the week, because if you don't do that, chances are things are going to get busy. You're going to grab whatever is convenient, and whatever is convenient is oftentimes not the healthiest, and it's not going to aid you in your weight loss goals. And then the last one here under nutrition is going to be a water intake goal. This is a very small habit to do. You can have something like a Stanley, you can have a blender bottle, a Nalgene, whatever it is, I don't care, but this is going to be your new best friend, right? You take that with you everywhere you go, so that way you can hit your water goals. According to the National Academy of Sports Medicine, men want to be drinking around 130 ounces per day, and most guys that I talk to and most guys entering my program are somewhere around 40 to 50 ounces per day. So I promise you, this is such a low-hanging fruit. Once you start doing it, you're going to feel better, and chances are you'll probably see some pounds come off the scale without changing anything else at all. Next up is going to be sleep and recovery. So many people overlook this. Honestly, one of my favorite TED Talks is Why Sleep is Your Superpower by Matt Walker. Go look it up and watch that after this video. But the first tip we've got here is have a consistent sleep schedule. You should be going to bed around the same time every single night and waking up around the same time every single morning, even through the weekends, so that way your body can have a regulated internal clock, and that's going to help you improve your sleep quality. And also you'll see those energy levels shoot through the roof if you start doing this. One thing that is really going to help with going to bed and setting up this consistent sleep schedule is having a pre-bedtime routine. So I would suggest having anywhere from 3 to 5 action items that you do every single night before bed. So that way, once you start doing those things, your body can expect that it is time to go to sleep within the next 30 minutes. And then the last one under this section is going to be limit your screen time before bed. I know it's tempting to stare at things like your phone and scroll through Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, watch YouTube videos, whatever it might be, but that exposure to light is going to disrupt your melatonin production, and it's going to make it harder for you to fall asleep. So I personally have a hard cutoff at 8:30 p.m. There's an awesome app called Opal, OPAL, that will block all of those social media apps for you. So once that time rolls around, my social media is blocked, I put the phone down, and my body knows that it's time to start getting ready for bed. So I would suggest you do something similar as well, so that way you can greatly enhance your sleep quality and quantity. And then last but not least, we have time management. So one of the first things in this category is going to be prioritize your day with a to-do list. So I personally have a notes app on my phone that I use, and I have bullet point items of everything that I need to accomplish for that day and days coming up in the future. So that way there is never a worry or concern or what it is I'm supposed to be doing for that day. I have purpose and I stay on mission. If planning out several days in advance like I do sounds overwhelming, then what I would suggest is starting with that day alone, writing down 3 to 5 things that you would like to accomplish for that day. And then as you're going through and accomplishing those things and deleting them from your to-do list, checking them off, scratching them off, that's going to give you that boost to keep on going, and it will get you ready for the next day as well. Another thing that will be useful in addition to a daily to-do list is going to be using time blocks. What I want you to do is go to your calendar and schedule specific blocks of time that are dedicated to one task and one task alone. The reason that I suggest doing this is because it is going to create structure in your day. It's going to help you create routine. And if you're focusing on one thing alone, it's going to prevent distractions and unproductive side tangents. And speaking of those side tangents, anyone else guilty of opening up social media because you want to do one thing and then you find out you scrolled for 20 minutes and you didn't do that initial thing that you said you were going to do? Yeah, we've all been there. So what I would recommend is limit your social media use, especially during those work hours or those time blocks in which you need to be productive. So now that we have covered all of the real life examples, I went ahead and created this fun level system for you guys. So if you are already doing 1 to 5 of these, you are building an amazing foundation. Keep up the good work. Start working towards the next level. Level 2 is going to be a contender. So if you are doing 6 to 10 of these, you are on your way to discipline and habit mastery. You just have to add a few more to get into the last category, and that category is going to be the pro level, which means you are already doing 10 to 15 of these. You are absolutely crushing it. Consistency is now a part of who you are and what you do. And before we part ways, I wanted to leave you with one key takeaway, and that is that the key to success is not waiting for motivation. It's all about taking action, showing up, honoring the commitments that you've made to yourself, even when you don't feel like it. And I hope I have convinced you of that through this video. But here's how you can start making progress and moving towards your goals today. So remember, you don't need motivation to start. What you need instead is going to be consistency. And the way that that is built is by having discipline with small actions, because small actions today are what's going to lead to those big results in the future. And by showing up every single day, you're going to honor your health, your faith, and your family. So what I want to encourage you to do is to take that first step now. No excuses, just action. If you need help, go back to the real life examples, pick one of those habits and start executing on that today. There is no reason that you cannot do that. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and turn those notification bells on so you don't miss when I post new videos. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.